Prisons, originally built to rehabilitate. Now many say they become machines of control and profit. But how did we get here? From the first penitentiaries of the 18th century to today's billion-dollar incarceration industry, this is the story of how prisons evolved and why so many people are trapped inside a system that was never meant to heal.
Learn with Hattie, break the chains, digital world running through my veins.
Prisons as we know today started to take shape in the late 1700s, when reformers in Europe and in the US pushed to replace brutal corporal punishment with confinement. One of the first major examples was Philadelphia's Eastern State Penitentiary, where prisoners were isolated for reflection, a system built more on silence than rehabilitation. Over time, three major waves shaped US prisons. The Jacksonian era. Prison became the dominant punishment, emphasizing hard labor. The Progressive era. Introduced probation, parole, and indeterminate sentencing. Reforms meant to give inmates a second chance. Post-1970s, marked by mass incarceration triggered by the war on drugs.
Drugs are bad, but doesn't this seem a little extreme?
Mandatory minimums and the infamous 3 strikes law. As societies changed, so did crime. Violent crime peaked in the 1990s but has since declined. Meanwhile, white-collar crime and cybercrime have grown in the digital age. Despite these trends, incarceration remained high, especially in the US, where nearly 1.23 million people were imprisoned in 2022. That's 531 people per 100,000, one of the highest rates in the world. Compare that to El Salvador, where there's 1,086 per 100,000. Cuba, 794 per 100,000. Rwanda, 637 per 100,000. In Europe, often less than 100 per 100,000. And there's another dimension, race and gender. In the US, Black Americans are incarcerated at far higher rates than white Americans. And since 2000, women's incarceration has grown twice as fast as men's. Prison life looks very different depending on where you are. In Norway and Sweden, rehabilitation is the focus, with access to education, therapy, and real reintegration support. In contrast, many U.S. prisons suffer from overcrowding, understaffing, and failing healthcare systems. In developing countries, the situation could be even worse. Extreme overcrowding, lack of medical care, and sometimes even violence from guards or inmates. Globally, around 11.5 million people are behind bars, and for many, survival is the daily priority. In 1984, a new player entered the scene: private prisons. These are for-profit companies paid by governments to manage incarceration. Today, they hold about 8% of U.S. inmates, or over 90,000 people. But with profit comes motive. Companies like CoreCivic and Geo Group have spent millions lobbying for tougher sentencing laws. Their influence is seen in laws like 3 strikes and truth in sentencing, which increase sentence lengths and profits. In some cases, the profit motive has gone too far, like the Kids for Cash scandal, where judges in Pennsylvania took bribes to send children to private juvenile facilities. When money mixes with justice, corruption isn't a risk, it's a guarantee. Every year, the US spends over $81 billion just to operate its prison system, plus another $38 billion in associated costs. But what's the return on that investment? Many argue we're funding a system that traps people instead of helping them reintegrate. Studies show that recidivism, or the rate at which former inmates return to prison, remains high, especially where rehabilitation services are lacking. The story of prisons is not just about crime. It's about justice, power, money, and society. It's about how we treat people at their lowest, and what that says about us. From the first penitentiary cell to the billion-dollar prison industrial complex, the question remains: are prisons meant to correct or just